Lord Brahma gave the three parts, the yoga of Shraddha, the yoga of Bhakti, and Dhyana, meditation. The yoga of Shraddha, even though Shraddha, we translate it as faith. We stated last week, spiritual journey starts with having an X amount of faith in the pursuit. You must have a basic belief, a basic trust in the pursuit of the higher, to be able to visualize, to be able to conceive the self. So have that basic faith in the pursuit, and then have enough Shraddha to pursue it. In that sense, we have said there are two elements. First is to have that faith, to be able to conceive, and then have enough Shraddha to pursue it. So we also attempted and differentiated what differentiates between true faith and blind faith. The quintessential difference between faith and blind faith is when there is absence of your intellectual exercise, when the mind by itself develops a fascination or an acceptance without any rational element, it invariably tantamounts to blind faith. And wherever there is a blind faith, it leads to a certain fanaticism. You become a fanatic. You don't think rationally thereafter. So in order to pursue anything, you must have faith, and faith, we defined it as in fact, Joe Goldsmith defines it so very beautifully. He says, faith is a belief in something unknown. Faith is a belief in something unknown until you come to know what you believed in. So it is a belief in something unknown. You have not experienced it. You have not known it, but yet you have a firm belief in it. So faith is a belief in something unknown until you come to know what you believed in. And once you believe in something, and once you experience it, then it's conviction, then it's an experience. Pratyaksha, you have directly experienced it, and there is no more faith. But until you experience it, you must have that faith in the pursuit to embark on the journey, to begin the journey. So the intellectual element to constantly question, only to understand that you are not going astray. You question so that you don't take things for granted. To that extent, when you have the intellection, you will be ensured that you will not have blind faith. But where the intellectual element is missing, it tantamounts to blind faith and fanaticism. Okay. Now, once that is established, we have established this very clearly last week. Now, then comes Shraddha, because the first quality he says is the yoga of Shraddha. So, Shraddha, as we have said, is the capacity to pursue the path. Here, they're only talking of one path, that is to pursue the path of seeking liberation, which is that mumukshatva, that firm belief you have in getting to the self. As I have said, this is the trait of a qualified student, an adhikari, a qualified student. One of the qualities is mumukshatva. In the first mantra, we have said. So, having established that unswerving faith you have in the pursuit of the self, that is, I want to get to the self, I want to realize the truth, that mumukshatva, the desire is there. All of us have this mumukshatva, but in most people, in the majority of people, what happens? All of us have this desire for mumukshatva. You may ask me, sir, how do you say everybody has desire for mumukshatva? Everybody has desire for mumukshatva. How do you say that? I'm making a statement. How do you say that everybody has a desire for mumukshatva? Sashikanji, any idea?
Namaste, Guruji. Mumukshatva, in fact, I had been thinking to understand the meaning of it, first of all. Particularly.
The meaning of mumukshatva, as we have often defined, it only has one meaning, sir. The mumukshatva is nothing but a burning desire.
A burning desire for the salvation.
For salvation or for liberation. That is mumukshatva. Now, what is the difficulty in understanding that?
No, somewhere lost it.
But now you got it back?
Yeah. I am in the line.
Right. So the question is, I said, everybody has this desire for liberation. And how do I say that?
Yeah, but everybody has the desire for mumukshatva, but the path or the process that by which maybe the mumukshatva is possible, how easily understood or how exactly people are getting into it, how much exactly the shraddha is given for that. Desire is fine, but maybe the path is finding for that. That will have to also maybe have to match on that, right? So that part is concerned, the shraddha part is missing. Everybody has got their own way, what they exactly understand. And they understand, yes, this is exactly enough for me maybe to get into the liberation. Somewhere, I have a feel of that way. Maybe I'm wrong, Guruji.
No, you're not wrong. Nobody is right or wrong as such. But as you rightly said, how many of them have the shraddha to pursue this? That is the second element. But the argument why what we are rationalizing is, how is it that every human is born with this desire to get back to the self?
Guruji, sometime back question. Also you told that, out of the 800 crore of population in the globe, only single digits number is exactly getting into the, lot of people might be at the path, but really maybe the liberation achieving like, Ramana Maharshi or something like that. So when the numbers are going to be like that, maybe the path is very difficult.
That is certain. The path is certainly not easy. The kind of numbers you mentioned, one in a generation reaches that. Scarcely anybody reaches that. So it is certainly not easy to get to that salvation. But everybody is born, every human is born with that desire to the self. No animal, animal doesn't have this desire to get to the self, only a human. Now, the reason is because, any idea the reason? Because the very nature of ours is the self. That is our original nature. That is our pure state. It's like you may take a round ticket, having the world opened up. You say, I want to see the world. I've been much awaiting to see the world. You take a round ticket from Bangalore, you start traveling, you go round the world in 80 days. So you go around the world, but ultimately, where would you come back? You would say, Abba, there's nothing like coming back home. Wouldn't you say that? How good or bad is, you say, home is home. Yeah. So that is your abode, that is your origin, that is where you belong. You may go wherever, how far you go, but you'll still come back to your place where you belong. That's your innate abode, that's your innate state. Exactly the same way, however far you have gone away from the self, the very desire to get back to the self you're born with, because that is your original nature. You should never forget that. So as you said, a very small, minuscule percentage of people are able to tap that inherent desire that is born with. Thanks, Shashikanji. So it's only a very small percentage of people who are able to tap it. So everybody has it, but a very few tap it. Why a very few tap it? Because most of the time, what happens? What happens to the desire? Everybody is born with this desire. What happens to this desire? Ramji, what happens to this desire, sir? You have it very much in you, but what happens to it?
Namaste, Guruji. I think the desire is overshadowed by our engagement with the world. What the desires and which are generated by the world and also by ourselves. So the temptations from the world and the desires from within, both.
When did the world start generating desires within you, sir?
No, that's what I changed it. So world generates temptations.
Before you change it, I caught it, sir. That's the reason. You don't give chances to us. Therefore, we have to catch you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So the point you're making is right, sir. The worldly desires overshadow and dwarf this single desire, isn't it, sir?
Yes.
If it is, so isn't there an imbalance then, sir? Multitude of worldly desires vis-a-vis one desire for the self. This is what we are talking about, literally, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And this maze of desires and the multitude of worldly distractions vis-a-vis one desire to get to the self. What chances we have, sir?
Very little. So I think that is where we the whole what the teaching is talking about is how do you overcome these worldly temptations and desires and go inwards to discovering yourself. So I think that this is imbalanced. There is no doubt in that. So the only way to overcome it is to be more introverted than to be more extroverted.
To the extent you're introverted, to that extent, the worldly desires are not there. That's how we define introvertedness. Introvertedness means one who has dropped the worldly desires.
Correct. Yeah.
But the only solace and comfort we should get is it is quality versus quantity.
That's true.
In fact, what we are given an assurance is one desire has got enough potency to displace all worldly desires. So you don't worry, it's just one desire. But if you're able to hold on to this desire, and if you're fed this desire, it has the capacity to displace all the worldly desires. Known, manifested, known means that which I have experienced, which you know I have worldly desires, which you don't know also. There may be so many which you do not know, isn't it? So many vasanas may be there which you are not aware of. Even those will be displaced. That is the strength of this one desire. And then, right, Jamli, thank you. And then
Yes,
he's saying to have the Shraddha to pursue that desire. Shraddha is to pursue that desire to get to the self. And Shraddha is an intellectual quality. So how much Shraddha you have in anything that you do depends on the intellect, intellectual strength. If you have 30% intellect, only 30% Shraddha will be there. 70% you will have no Shraddha. Kashish, what do I mean? 30% intellect you have Shraddha, 70% you have no Shraddha means what happens there? What would you be doing? Any idea?
Guruji, I think maybe when you say 30% Shraddha, it's that you have that desire or motivation up to a point, and then when it gets a bit difficult or when it gets a bit tricky and you have to do some intense thinking, it's like, well, that's a bit too hard, I'll give up. Or you get distracted by other things. That level of concentration is not there.
So yes, so in effect, when you have no capacity to pursue the self, which is Shraddha, is that capacity to pursue it till the end, means there's a certain consistency. So if you have only 30%, the 70%, what drives you into action?
Perhaps other vasanas, or
You
well,
fall
vasana's the
up,
main one.
you fall a prey to the desires and the mind. Vasanas is too strong a term, but you fall a prey to your mind and other desires and temptations. They distract you off your course. Like as a student, when you had gone to Australia, you had a very clear purpose why you're going there, isn't it? You have an objective of studying, obtaining a degree, perhaps then picking up a job of a certain portfolio, so on and so forth. Now, if that was your objective from even before you leaving Hong Kong to get there, now how successful you have been in achieving that and maintaining the thought is determined by how much Shraddha Kashish has got. Because there is a very clear objective of me going there is to do this. But then there are many other things that come into your life that could present itself as a distraction to take you off your course, isn't it? I'm not saying you have gone off course, not at all. I'm only saying there could be many things. There are many things that could distract you, attract you, and say, hey, why not do this? I like to do that, etc., etc. But then that means I'm going off my course of trying to pursue what I've come there for. You can still do many things and still pursue it. But the moment what takes you, what we are saying is what takes you off course is where you have no intellect. I said 30% you're on course, 70% off course. Now you're able to visualize what I'm saying?
Yes, Guruji. Thank you.
So what takes you to your goal is, therefore, what takes you to your goal?
Shraddha.
Shraddha, that's all. Perfect. So what takes one to the goal is that Shraddha. So therefore, this is yoga of Shraddha. All right. So don't limit it to mere faith. It is an intellectual quality. Raghugaru, you're following, sir?
Hari Om Guruji. Yes, I'm following.
Yes.
I'm taking
You're okay?
all the
All okay?
notes. Yeah.
That you have to send me for me to check what you're writing. I don't know what you're writing. You're writing many things there.
I'm writing some in Telugu, some in English, all kind of.
I
mix
knew
and match
that.
and
I knew there will be mix and match, and you will make a mincemeat of the whole thing, and then you will say this is Vinayji's points. I may not have said many of that. That's why I'm saying I don't know. I don't know what you're writing. So all okay so
I
far
was
so good.
wondering yeah, Guruji. I would like to add one more point here. Like I was wondering how Telugu is involving all these words. Shraddha means in Telugu they used to talk all the people. Shraddhaga chadukuntaru, bagupadtaru, adi idi ani. These words are having too much technical terms to it. Yeah, I'm even wondered my own language is having a lot of things for liberation. Yeah.
So it's all originating from Sanskrit, and then it all has definitely, we have loosely, colloquially kept using these terms, not understanding the real deeper meaning, you know.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know how many of them have caught what Raghugaru is saying. In our childhood days, our parents would tell us, Shraddhaga chadukora, means you please study with Shraddha. Same thing, you know, whatever you're doing, give your 100% to it, give your whole personality to it, give your life to it. I know how much Shraddha you had while studying Raghugaru, that you don't have to tell. All right, thank you. Right, so this is the yoga of Shraddha. And then he says the yoga of Bhakti. Now, one is an intellectual quality, Shraddha, as we said, and Bhakti is purely a quality of devotion which engages the mind. Now, as we understand, everything cannot be captured with intellect. So what is lost in intellection is gained by devotion. What is not captured, what is not experienced in intellection is captured or gained by devotion. And what is bhakti? Bhakti, always we have maintained, is an awareness of providence backed by an attitude of thankfulness, gratefulness. This is bhakti. I repeat, bhakti is an awareness of providence. And in short, awareness with gratitude is bhakti. An awareness of what providence has provided. There's so much that you have got. An awareness of what you have backed with an attitude of thankfulness or gratefulness. And if you are able to relate to bhakti, everything is a wonderment. So when you relate to the wonderment, it is bhakti. When you don't relate to wonderment, it is jnana. Everything in life is a wonderment. Ascharya, ascharya. How does it happen? Everything is happening so beautifully. It's a wonderment. So what is a wonderment? That means you are no bhakti. Even me, without explaining, if you are able to relate to the bhakti, that is devotion. If need explanation means there's no bhakti. Correct, Gayatri Ma? So you must understand, you must feel it. Where you feel, there's no understanding. So don't try to understand wonderment. You must feel it. Are you able to feel it?
Yes, Guruji. What the the intellect cannot conceive, when you feel with the mind, the emotion, that's a bhakti.
Feel what?
Love for the God.
Love for God. In short, it is what we said bhakti is.
Bhakti is an awareness of providence has been what has been provided with an attitude of gratitude.
An awareness of providence. So you're aware of that providence, that provider, and you're thankful. And you are so thankful, so grateful to that provider. That is the bhakti and the feeling, how things are, how mysteriously happening. That feeling is what is bhakti. So you are ever attuned to the provider, to the providence. That's bhakti. You can't rationalize. You can't say, who is it? What is it? Where is it? The moment you question it, it is out. So you can't question the providence or the provider. You can't doubt the provider. Can you? Can you doubt the provider? The moment you doubt the provider, it means you have no bhakti or no shraddha, no faith rather. Now, Paragaru, when you have bhakti, what happens, sir? As I said, bhakti is awareness with gratitude. When you are having a feeling of thankfulness for whatever you have been provided with, right now, take your life, this moment, freeze your life, and take a stock of what life has provided you, what providence has provided you. You must be extremely thankful for whatever has happened. I'm not saying you're not, but the moment one is enveloped with this bhakti, what would be the result of that?
So, once you have the wonderment of what has been provided, once you wonder, probably most of the times, some of us are, we realize that what actually one deserves and what has been provided by the God or whatever it is, then you feel that is a wonderment. I always feel, oh, what I should be or what I wanted to be, and I have been given much more than what I expected, and that gives me a wonderment. And then I thank God for what all has been provided to me, and this also gives me a shraddha, and devote to the God who has provided all these things. and ultimately surrendering to him, and would like to be part of him. That is what I feel.
Not becoming, only part. Huh?
One with him. That is what, basically, if I look into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or, the other Jaydev, they have become part of the God. For them, it was always chanting Krishna. It has been. There's even when they breathe, it probably, it is the Krishna Smaran that happens to them.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right. I have not got that one word which I was looking for, but I would give pass marks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Haresh, if I can ask you, when you have bhakti, what is the direct consequence? How does it, what is the direct effect of having bhakti?
Hari Om Guruji. What comes to my mind, Guruji, is that when we have this thankfulness and wonderment, the one word that I can think of, we become less selfish or more giving. That's what comes to my mind, Guruji. Less selfish and more giving.
Less selfish, more giving. Yes, the expression of that. Yes, in fact, what would happen directly is, you're right, selfish means you anapeksha, apeksha. The Sanskrit apeksha means wants, desires, expectations. A quality of a bhakta is anapeksha, means there is no wants. He's free from wants or desires. So instantly the direct effect of bhakti in a person is he doesn't have any desires or wants. So as you said, selfishness, you don't want anything because you are so thankful, you feel you're so blessed with what you have. You have no reason to complain of what you do not have. Now, how many times in a day do you thank the Lord for what you have? And how many times in a day you complain that things are not happening? I know you may not be working today, Harish, but let's say if you're at work and if you have so many deadlines and so many things to do, would you be remembering this quality of bhakti while you're at work and be thankful for what's happening? Or frustrated or what things are not happening?
I would say definitely despite the day-to-day events in my life, I'm a lot more grateful and a lot less frustrated than I was in the past. And I remember when Situ Ramanji last week said in one of the classes that everything that happens in life is prasad. And I've imbibed with that mindset that no matter what happens, it's all prasad. That thought is constant, much more frequently now.
So glad to know. So the desire, the wants, the grumbling and complaining of life, no more. So you see a person with no legs and you see you have legs. That is bhakti. You're thankful that I have 2 limbs. The other person has no limbs. You're thankful for what you have. But sadly, we constantly keep feeding our desires. So desire, where you entertain desires is you have no feeling of bhakti. Right? The moment you have bhakti, there is no room for desires and wants. So so everything is not conquered through jnanam, please. Bhakti also has such a powerful ways and means to help you dislodge your impurities of desire. So the yoga of Shraddha, yoga of Bhakti. Jama has asked me a direct, I don't know why she is posted directly to me, but the question is, Guruji, can one have Bhakti even if they are not provided with material comforts? She is giving a reference of the great Saint Tyagaraja. Is being provided lead to gratitude. As I've said, I took the example now, you have limbs. You see person who doesn't have limbs. You don't have to be materially provided to have great gratitude. There's so much that you are blessed with, which so many people may not have. So that's why I said bhakti is an awareness of what providence has provided. The moment you start looking at things what you do not have, it is no bhakti. So if you look at areas or realms what you're provided and be thankful of, that triggers bhakti. Don't treat everything from a material perspective. Okay. Ashama, you're saying something?
Pranam Guruji.
Yes, ma'am.
We were talking of अपेक्षा. अपेक्षाएं जहां खत्म होती हैं, सुकून वहां से शुरू होता है. Where the desires end, the contentment begins. The contentment sets in. There's a small story about gratitude.
Please.
Forwards I had received. It's about these Sikhs have these gurus, 10 gurus. So one of the gurus, his disciple was very devoted and very sincerely he was working for the Gurudwara and for the Sangat. So, and the Guru knew that his background was very humble. So he asked this disciple, he says, you have so honestly, with such Shraddha, you have been working, ask anything you want and it shall be granted. So the Bhakt said, I don't want anything, I have everything. He said, no, you have to ask for something. So he said, can I come back tomorrow? So he went home and he told his mother, he says, Guru has asked me to ask for something, but I don't know what to ask for. So the mother said, these days we have meal only once a day. So why don't you ask Guru for enough food in the house? So the Bhakt said no. Then the wife said, why don't you ask for a piece of land? That also was not appealing. His little daughter, she said, ask for something big, don't ask for such trivial things. So this man said, tomorrow you come with me and you ask Guru what do you mean by big thing? So the next day the girl appeared before the Guru. So she said, these days we have one meal a day. We are grateful for that. But bless us with gratitude that even if we don't have food for 2 and 3 days, we would still be grateful. That is gratitude.
Blessed are the parents to have a kid like that, isn't it? So nice, so nice. Thank you, Ashrama. A beautiful story. So the antidote for desires is bhakti. Bhakti bhakti is constantly be grateful for what it's an awareness backed by gratitude. Now, then he says dhyana throughout, wherever, whenever you tap the shastras, this is the order. Once you set right your head, set right your mind with desires, then only you do dhyana. You don't bypass these things and get into dhyana. Dhyana is meditation. And meditation is the art of keeping the mind on a single thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. So to the extent you have integrated the yoga of Shraddha, it's not easy. Don't tell me people who are plunging into meditation today have this quality of Shraddha. One desire to pick out from the desire to liberate, the desire for liberation. You have picked out from the maze of your attachments and desires, you have dropped them, you have picked it. People don't even know definition of mumukshutva, but you get picking up the desire for mumukshutva. So it is a far cry. Meditation is, it's a good attempt, but without much favorable results, because you have not done preparatory work. So it's like I'm trying to sow a seed without preparing the soil. I have to prepare the soil for the seed to sprout. So Shraddha, Bhakti, and Dhyana. And then the Guru slides on the various indiscriminative practices adopted by the ignoramuses. Spiritual ignoramuses adopt certain practices. And then in the second half of the mantra, he says, na karmana na prajaya dhanena na karmana. Not by activity, na prajaya, nor by progeny. You don't attain the self, you don't get to spiritual evolution by activity, na karma. So how should you interpret the word karma here? Karma is not referring to the karma yoga or the yoga of service and sacrifice. What karma here refers to mundane, mechanical, ritualistic practices. The karma kanda in the Vedas they talk about is the ritualistic practices. So you will not attain any good by merely performing ritualistic practices. Authoritative text is saying that. And Upanishadic Guru is saying that you will not progress spiritually by merely performing ritualistic work. Now, what is common in any ritualistic work? Those who perform ritualistic work, what is common? What's evident? UK. Any idea? Those who perform this karmakanda, ritualistic work, what is common? Yes, ma?
Namaste, Guruji.
Yes, ma.
Is it the homage to Agni, Guruji, the fire? Or is it the presence of
any ritual you perform, mechanical rituals, the various ritualistic practices, not specifically talking of homam or yajna or fire worship here, but any ritual that is practiced, the karma kanda that is talking about, what is the common factor there?
It is performed for the sake of performing, Guruji, not out of your own shraddha or your own personal feelings.
Oh, you think so?
Mostly it is, Guruji, like that.
You just perform for the sake of performing, huh?
Many of us perform it just for the sake of performing, without knowing the meaning or the underlying, without having any knowledge about why it is being performed.
You mean the mechanical element there?
Yes.
People are doing it mechanically.
Yes.
Now, others other than that, why do people do it? Any idea? What's common there?
It's a sort of a show off, Guruji.
I hope not. I hope it is not for showing off, because it's, you do it individualistically. It's not something a common, it's not a common activity you embark
Or
on.
you're expecting with some expectation.
This is where I was getting at. All right, you do it with an expectation. So the underlying factor when people do this
Rituals.
What is common is
With a desire to get something or with an expectation to get something.
there is a desire. There is a desire. And a desire means it is for a selfish purpose,
Yeah.
for yourself. You're asking something for yourself. Good, ma. That's what I wanted. Apara garu, me vaatlo cheppan, sir.
Guruji, every karma is performed with expectation. That's what Ushama was telling, and I believe that. And we also call it, when we are doing any karma kanda, for example, any yajna or homa, we call it as ishti, where we have some desire, and then we try to fulfill the desire by performing that karma kanda. But it is not always so, because at the end of the karma kanda or yajna or homa, we always say sarvam parbrahmanarpanamastu. So it's not whatever my desire, again it is offered to the Parabrahma.
But how many of them feel it? How many
I don't
of them
know.
are attuned? So many Vedic mantras are chanted.
Yes, but again at the end of it, it is said sarvam parbrahmanarpanamastu.
So does that, do you mean to say that actually displaces the very desire for which you have performed that ritual or yajna?
Certainly,
or that activity?
certainly, Guruji. Certainly.
You think so?
Certainly.
If one who is attuned to that, see the master here, the Upanishad here is saying you don't attain, you need Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. He says one side, these you do, you don't attain self by activity and progeny. So the text is portraying Karma Kanda here as in a negative way. I'm not saying, the Upanishad, the Vedas are themselves saying. So in fact, Karma Kanda is also one part of the Vedas. Upanishad is also a part of the Vedas. So Upanishads are the higher sections of the Vedas. Karma Kanda is recommended to the lower section of the Kada. And the higher section of the Kada is denouncing the lower section of the Kada and say, this, you should not do it. Now, obviously, what is not the activity by itself, but the wrong attitude you do the activity.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong in the activity. Yes, the attitude here is the problem.
That's right.
The wrong approach to the activity. Now, what is the wrong approach? When you do this activity with a phalakama, you have a fruit in mind for a selfish objective, then you're doing that action as an end in itself.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
you do, yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
With a selfish goal, definitely what you're saying is right, Guruji. The thing is, the goal can be a noble cause. For example, we talk about, Manaspanta Shanti, all these things. We have actually the three shantis. What we are talking about, we can actually desire those three shantis, and we can do this yajna.
For whom? For whom?
Serve the whole world, the whole universe. And generally yajnas and homam are performed actually, as far as I know, apart from this one selfish desire, it is also performed for the whole world. For example, we have seen many yajnas performed for rains, and it is not a selfish, it's something very noble.
So why everybody's crop must grow, my crop should not grow?
Everybody's means you are one of the everyone, sir.
One everyone. Okay, then accepted, sir. So, but these activities are meant to invoke the self and nothing other than the self. Majority of people think of something worldly. A small minority of people think of the self. So the potential, he's saying, is these are meant to get there. If you are stuck in it as an end in itself, every time I hear this on and off, now it's much less. But the earlier days I used to listen, even at home or relative, I used to hear people say mukku. Mukku means what?
Okay, it's basically mukku is basically vow, isn't it? I don't.
It's a vow. So if you have got what you have, typical, they would say, oh, I will offer this much to the temple, to the Lord, or I will climb the stairs and come, or I will do 108 pradakshina, or I will do this much charity. Why? Because I had a desire and that got fulfilled. Therefore, I prayed to the Lord, if I do this, if I get that, I will do this. That kind of
Guruji, from what I have learned, there's nothing wrong in the so-called mokku, because as a human being, we have lots of sufferings and other things, and it is an attitude of gratitude, like what we have learned in this class, for providing something by the God. And I want, as an attitude of gratitude, I shave my head in Tirupati because he has provided me. That is, I am actually, I am shedding off my ego. The Kesha is represented by ego. So if God has given me something, I'm actually shaving my head. I'm surrendering to him. I'm actually moving forward towards him. So it's not that it's a backward journey if I'm doing a mokku.
So you have art of convincing, sir. So I am totally convinced, sir. I'm speechless. As long as an unholy thought enters a holy practice, the holy act of prayer and worship, there shouldn't be any unholy thought of I and my in it. As long as the unholy thought enters, it is impure, you're not fit for immortality. So karma will not take you to the self if there is that aham bhava, the I and my. So karma, if you take it and do it as an end in itself, it will not take you any further. Most of the people perform rituals is for their own self-benefit, with a phala karma, for themselves in mind. They don't have a higher purpose. It's almost a barter, or somebody said it's like you get into an agreement with God. You do this, I do that. Or you have done that, therefore I'm doing this. That is not the attitude with which a bhakta approaches God. A bhakta, as we learned in in the yoga of bhakti, when we explain, is you're free from wants. You have there is no desire to be thankful for. What would you thank him? He already provided. Why do you have to have any further desire to entertain and go and thank him? There is no anapeksha, free from wants. You are helpless. You don't know what to ask for. That kind of a helpless state you are. Okay, I think you are saying the same thing, but from a slightly different perspective. But by activity here refers to anything as an end in itself. Okay, sir?
Yes.
Right. Yes, Harik ji. Right, sir.
A common factor which I have observed among the ritualists is that they feel they have a great degree, a sense of discomfort or intolerance towards those people who are not ritualists. They feel uncomfortable because they are so totally involved in ritualism that anybody who is not a ritualist, in one way or other, they may not be expressing it explicitly, but internally they don't feel comfortable. They feel ritualism is the only way. And
that is what I've said, that they are stuck to it as an end in itself. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But those who use it as a means to an end, then you are evolving.
Yeah, that is different. But they are not actually, when those who are using ritualism as a means to an end, that they are not purely ritualists. That is an integration of head and heart. There, the intellect plays a key role. They know exactly what they are doing. They know the meaning of the mantra which they are chanting, and they are very much involved and absorbed in it. So to them, Jnanam and Bhakti cannot be separated. They are integral. They know.
Right.
They are
yes, sir.
full. Yeah.
Right. Point taken, sir. Thank you. Yeah, Raghugaru.
Yeah, Guruji, I have one question here. Like, it may be not very appropriate, but the most of the I read the Mausala Parva a couple months ago, and I think most of our religion is not really stressing on any gods or anybody. I'm not sure I can make that comment, but I feel when Krishna's son was died in front of him, and all the city built is gone into the sea within 7 days, and all his wives and other people who are after Krishna's death were having a lot of unfortunate situations. I think in a way the religion has put Krishna as also a kind of, okay, this is what you get when you get stuck in a cycle. And I think rituals and all these pujas or whatever we are performing to gods, probably say Krishna or Rama or anybody else. I am now fear to see what God's own son got drinking, and he got into drinking habit, and then he died in some of the fighting happened between the Kaurava, the Yadavas. So I feel this is some kind of cycle. Everybody is stuck. Even Krishna himself is stuck, or kind of, at least is. If he is not stuck, probably the other people who are with him, and some external factor has to be considered here. I don't know how much I can wait, but that was a long time question I had.
Sir, my knowledge of stories is very poor, sir. So I need to catch up on little stories and come back, sir, to you. I don't know all that you're saying. I don't know. I'm not aware. So don't go by the little story of it. Get into the philosophy, and that would help you today in your life with how to deal with your own challenges, helps you purify yourself. Don't worry about the story and the that element. Disregard that. If I were you, I would disregard what happened then. What's more important is what's the philosophy the Lord gave in the Gita. That's all. That's more relevant to you today. What's relevant to me is the teachings, not what happened where. Okay. The
That's
philosophy,
true, but I would like to add
philosophy doesn't die. The philosophy doesn't die. That's why we call it Sanatana Dharma, the principles. Yes, sir. You're saying something?
Yeah, I wanted to add. The man who said the philosophy is also going through something like Krishna is himself is going through something. Probably I should research something more on it, like what exactly is this? This is not kind of see. Maybe probably this karma and other things will not even leave anybody, including gods or probably something like that.
But don't take it literally. These great men reached a state where nothing affected them. They are beyond that. That's the reason. If you read the second chapter of the Gita, they say Asthita Prajna is one who is not affected by sukha dukkha. The best of things or the worst of things. They're not affected by it. They have transcended all that. So your real spiritual state is measured by how you remain unaffected by whatever that happens to you. So they reach that state of perfection. So that's what we must understand. Don't judge them by what they were subjected to. That everybody is born, everybody has to die. Birth and death is inevitable. Disease is inevitable. Death is inevitable. But how these people were completely above it. It didn't matter to them. That's the point we got to take a note here. Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So not by activity, karma, nor my progeny. You don't attain any spiritual good by merely being born into a particular environment. It's not a status of birth that gives you the spiritual urge. Just because you're born into a particular family, it doesn't mean you're ready for that journey. You're being born into a Brahmin family doesn't mean you are a Brahmana. So it is not by birth, nor by progeny. So your spiritual age is measured by mumukshatva. It's not measured by where you're born. How spiritually evolved you are is determined by the mumukshatva. And then in the end of it, he says, by renunciation of wealth, some have attained immortality. Tyagena hike. Dhanena tyagena amrutatvama Amrtatvam, the immortality has been attained. Some have attained it. So it is not that it is an experiment. So he is saying a matter of fact. Some have attained through renunciation of wealth. Now, what is renunciation of wealth? Renunciation of wealth means renouncing your false values of wealth. So any false value you give to wealth binds you, but once you have the right value to wealth, you grow. So when he says some have attained through renunciation of wealth, immortality has been attained by that, it only says it is not an experiment. Some have reached it. Now why he says some? Because this is a sadhana for the less evolved people. Dhyana is a practice for the highly evolved people. Renunciation of wealth is for the lesser evolved people. Those who are less evolved must practice renunciation of wealth. Those who have more vasanas are attached to the wealth of the world. To them he is saying, renounce your wealth. Those who have less vasanas and desires will perform Shraddha, Bhakti and Dhyana. To them he gave that practice. To the less evolved he gave the practice of renunciation. What is it about progeny, Hariji? You just because you're born to a Brahman family doesn't mean you, a Brahmana is one who has the mumukshatva. Because a Brahmana is one who pursues the self. The sattva in him is more pronounced. He's a Brahmana. So if I am born into a Brahmin family, doesn't make me qualified for spiritual path. So it is not by birth you gain immortality. Just by being born into the family, I don't gain that mumukshatva, which, let's say, if my parents have that mumukshatva, I don't get by being born into that family. Or it's also possible I have mumukshatva which nobody in the family has got. So it is nothing to do with the place of birth. It's nothing to do with your parentage. It is to do with your own spiritual age. So your spiritual age is mumukshatva. It is not determined by whom you're born, where you're born. So don't find comfort in being born into a particular family or a lineage. That by itself has no meaning. So you don't attain the self by progeny. You don't attain the self by karma. You have to take the path of Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. Some have attained through yoga of renunciation. Or he doesn't put it as yoga of renunciation, but rather he says the renunciation of wealth. Renunciation at all levels of your personality, not just material wealth. Tyaga. So how important is Tyaga? Mudha jahihi dhanagama trishna. O fool, give up your thirst for acquiring wealth, your false value for wealth. Adi Shankaracharya says in Bhaja Govinda. Yes, sir. Tell me, Hariji. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Guruji, I was trying to ask you that somewhere in the Shastra they have declared or they have written that you will not be able to go to heaven if you don't have a son. Pum is that if you don't have a son, you go to a Naraga called Pum Naraga. I don't know, I'm not very... Does he mean that all these type of declaration is invalid by telling that progeny will not take you to the higher he flatly make a declaration of denouncing such type of statement? That's
Absolutely.
what I want.
As I said, he is taking an Upanishad takes an authoritative stance. Here, he is not even appealing to you. He is saying you will not. Full
Not,
stop.
yeah.
You not by progeny, not by karma. So you better get a hang around it and make sense of it. Don't try to justify your practices which you are practicing. Many people who do karma kanda justify their practices.
So he is overruling whatever has been written.
Simply overruling, dismissing it. As I said, these are the higher texts of the Vedas. They are the authoritative textbooks. So one who adheres and heeds to these practices would not give a license to the various ritualistic practices. But they have a great role if you do it as a means to an end. Everything is a ritual. Now we'll chant an invocation, conclusion. It's a ritual. But it has to be done as a means to an end, not an end in itself. Majority of people are stuck to it, attached to it. So it is of no use. All right, sir. So it's authoritative declarations. All right. We'll come back. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.